This is a 2025 Tesla Model 3 Performance, and this is my 2019 Tesla Model 3 Long Range. As you can see, I have both of these cars lined up next to each other, so that means we're gonna do a comparison. What does the Highland change versus the pre-refresh, and should you spend the extra cash to get a new Model 3 versus a used Model 3? Let's find out. I am aware that this is not a fair comparison, as this is a Model 3 Performance, this is a Model 3 Long Range. But when I'm comparing powertrain specs, I will give you the specs for the Model 3 Performance that this would have been. Let's get started. Starting with the front of both vehicles. As you can see, the new Model 3 is a lot slimmer headlights. You can see these are kind of Porsche style headlights, makes it look more bubbly. This looks more like the new Tesla Roadster. And if I pop the Le Frunk, pop that one, opening up both front trunks. And you can see that the Model 3 Highland is marginally larger. However, it does not include a floor mat in the front trunk. And they also moved the washer reservoir up to the front versus in the back on the old Model 3. So you can see the hood is obviously a different shape. The frunk is a little bit different. Both of them have an emergency latch. Both of them have roughly the same cargo capacity. Again, this one seems to be slightly larger, but not by much. So front trunk is basically the same, except for this one has little grocery bag hooks. The Highland doesn't have that. Take a closer look at the headlights. Lights on, hazards on. You'll see the DRL is here now. Low beam, your high beam, and your turn signal. No fog lights in the bumper at all on any trim. No Model 3 Highlands have traditional fog lights. The Performance does have these little arrow winglets, just like on the old Model 3, but the Long Ranges do not have this. So there's the headlights on the Model 3 Highland. Hazard lights on, headlights on. And I'll turn on the fog lights as well, because this car does have those fog. There we go. You can see here, the turn signals are down here on the old car. There is no matrix LED function or projector headlights. The newer non-refresh Model 3s do have projector headlights, but since this one's a 2019, it's just a basic LED reflector, low beam, high beam, running light, fog light, and accent lighting and parking lights down there. And overall, I think the new one looks a lot better, but I wish it had traditional fog lights, because that's just cost cutting if you ask me. Wheels and tires. This Model 3 has the 20-inch Pirelli P0s, 235/35 R20 on the front and 275/35 R20 in the rear. So these are the Performance wheels and tires. As you can see, they are on the Warp wheels. And on the old Model 3, I have aftermarket tires. But what would have came on this car is a similar setup to that, I believe 235/35 R20. So the same as that on the front, same rear tire size as the front on that. So I don't think the OG Performance was staggered, but these are an 18-inch wheel, and this car originally came with the 19-inch wheel. The old Model 3 Performance had regular fixed rate dampers versus the Model 3 Highland has adjustable rate dampers, so you can make it stiffer or softer depending on the driving condition. You will also notice up front that this car has ultrasonic sensors. Older Teslas do have this, and actually pre-refresh versions of the Model 3 did away with ultrasonic sensors, I think around 2022. That car has no ultrasonic sensors, but that does have hardware 4 cameras, and this is hardware 3 cameras. So the FSD driving suite on the new Model 3 is much better than on the old Model 3. As you can see, both cars have side repeater cameras, but again, hardware 4, hardware 3. And both cars have cameras up in the windshield, but again, hardware 4, hardware 3. And you will also notice that the old Model 3 has chrome trim, while the new Model 3 has black trim. Hopping into the 2019 Long Range, thumb first, grab, sliding inside. Excuse the very dirty car, but I didn't bother to clean it. Anyway, the seats are heated, 10-way power adjustable. The steering wheel is not heated. There is a turn signal stock and shifter stock, wood on the dash, and your 15-inch touchscreen. So yeah, pretty simple. Center console has lots of storage, but no wireless charging. The cup holders are nice, and also you have piano black trim on the door. And initially on the center console, there would be piano black trim, but I wrapped over that with matte black because piano black is ugly. And both cars unlock right here with a key card. Moving to the Model 3 Highland, same door handle situation as on the OG, put thumb first, then grab, although it is black now. You will see that these have special sport seats, unlike that car. The OG Performance had the same seats as the Long Range, only the new Performance has special seats. You'll notice matte black trim on the center console, or actually not on the center console. Center console is this cool textured gray material, but on the door, you have matte black buttons to release the door and the matte black window switches. The steering wheel is heated. There's no turn signal or shifter stock. You shift on the touchscreen by swiping up and down like this. You also have an auxiliary shifter on the roof in case the touchscreen fails. Seats are 10-way power adjustable, heated and ventilated, although the passenger seat does not have lumbar, unlike the old Model 3. Interesting. This does have aluminum pedals. A Model 3 Performance of that vintage would also have aluminum pedals. One thing I will say though is that the original Model 3 had what seems to be more center console storage, or at least more easily accessible center console storage. But again, then you do have that wireless charging. The touchscreen is roughly the same size, although it looks smaller because the bezels are actually a little bit thinner than the old car. And the screen is also an updated processor. It went from an Intel Atom in the old Model 3 to an AMD Ryzen CPU, so the graphics are much better. You also do have ambient lighting running around the outside of the doors, and carbon fiber trim on the dash instead of wood trim on the dash, and a Model 3 Performance back then would also have had wood trim on the dash. Another thing to note is that the cup holders on the older Model 3 are plastic lined, versus the new ones are lined with carpet, at least on the inside of the door, to prevent rattles. And obviously both cars have a complete glass roof. I believe the Model 3 Highland has a 17-speaker premium sound system versus the old Model 3 has a 12-speaker premium sound system. I know for a fact the new one is 17. I'm not sure if the old one's 12. I think it's 12, including the subwoofer. The Model 3 Highland has a much improved interior. Let's go to the back seats. Hopping into the back of the 2019, same door handles up front. The seat is set to my driving position. As you can see, my knees are right up against the seat. My head just barely touches the roof. I do have lights in the center here, little coat hooks up here. Same door handle releases up front, although there is no manual release near the window switch, and there is no manual way to unlatch these rear doors in the old Model 3. You also have air vents back here, USB-A ports, and 2 central cup holders with an extendable headrest. So overall in the back seat, it's pretty basic, although I will say each back seat, including the middle seat, is heated. It is not in the Model 3 Performance or the Highland because the middle seat is not heated. You also have seat back pockets on these seats, and that'll become important in 1 second. Hopping into the back of the Model 3 Highland, again, same door handles as up front. Seat is set to my driving position once again. As you can see, there is slightly less legroom, I think because of the design of these seats. There is no seat back pocket, although you do have matte black on the door handles. The outboard seats are heated, but the middle seat is not, unlike that car. But you do have a rear touchscreen where you can watch YouTube, control your fan speed, and your air vent position back here. You also have 2 USB-As and a center armrest with 2 cup holders. You also have 2 different lights up here. They are in different spots. You also have coat hooks, and in this door, there is a manual way to unlatch the door in case you are stuck back here, unlike the OG Model 3. You also do have ambient lighting on this rear door card, and there is nothing on the old car. If you ever need to fold down the seat, both cars have that ability. If you move the front seat forward, it will lay flat, so you have a lot more cargo capacity. Anyway, hopping out is a little bit more difficult because you can see, even though this is set to my driving position, the seat kind of curves back a little bit more. So it's a little bit more difficult to get in and out versus the old car. But that's kind of a fault of it being the Performance instead of the long range. Coming around to the rear, you can see Tesla is spelled out across the back versus just the Tesla logo on the older car. The Model 3 Highland has an updated rear brake light that is all one piece, amber turn signals, and red exterior brake lights here. Your reverse lights are down in the bumper. I will insert a clip of those. And when you open the trunk, there is the turn signals that move down to here, and then your rear brake light is up here. On the old Model 3, you have red turn signals, which is also shared with the brake light. You also have your running lights going around the outside. Your reverse light is right here in the taillight, and there is no lights down in here in the bumper at all. Ignore the tow hitch. The defroster lines in the Model 3 Highland just go in a straight grid pattern versus the defroster lines on the old Model 3, which have this kind of cool arch pattern that goes around. You can also see through the back window that both cars have 3 child anchor points in the rear, and I believe the Highland has the subwoofers in the rear deck lid. The old Model 3 doesn't have any speakers up here. The subwoofer is actually over here in this little cubby. Popping open the trunks on both of these, the new one has a power trunk. The old one has a manual trunk, although newer versions of the pre-refreshed Model 3 also had a power trunk as well. As you can see, since these taillights are one piece, they go with the trunk lid versus splitting apart like on the older car. Trunk space is very similar, although that one has an extra compartment on the right side cubby there. This one does not have that because the subwoofer goes there in this car. And the underfloor storage is basically identical between the two. Although the old car has plastic trim surrounding the trunk latch, whereas the new car has carpeted trim surrounding the trunk latch. The back hatch on the trunk is also carpeted on the new car, plastic on the old car. Both the cars seem to have the exact same license plate lights as well. The weather stripping in the rear trunk on the new Model 3 is better designed to cope with rainwater ingress. The old Model 3s had an issue where the rain would just kind of fall into the trunk because this gutter wouldn't catch it, but now that should be fixed. The Model 3 Highland also has a rear recovery point in the bumper versus not on the new Model 3, but both of them do have one in the front bumper. Moving to the charge port on the old Model 3, just tap to open. The long range and performance cars both had a 77.2 kilowatt hour gross Panasonic battery pack made out of 2170 cells with a peak DC fast charge rate 250 kilowatts and a peak AC charging rate of 11.2 kilowatts or 48 amps at 240 volts. So that means your range at most with the long range rear wheel drive Model 3 is 310 miles EPA, but with the all wheel drive performance it was closer to I think 260 or 270. So yeah, pretty simple. Close it like that. Moving to the Model 3 Highland, charge port works the same way as in the OG Model 3. Your battery pack is an 82.2, or maybe it's just 82 flat, Panasonic battery pack made out of 2170 cells, just like the old Model 3. Peak DC fast charge rate of 250 kilowatts, peak AC charging rate of 11.2 kilowatts or 48 amps at 240 volts. With the performance trim, your range is 298 miles, or if you get the long range rear wheel drive with the same battery pack, you can do up to 363 miles on the EPA cycle, although I've seen closer to 380 in real world testing. So the Model 3 Highland has way more range, but not faster charging or really much different at all as far as the battery pack. The battery pack is just bigger and probably has better cooling solutions for the more powerful motors. Speaking of which, both of these cars are dual motor powertrains. Now the power figure that I'm going to be quoting for this 2019 Model 3 is going to be of the 2019 Model 3 Performance, not the long range. Speaking of which, this dual motor Model 3 Performance, hypothetical here, makes 450 horsepower and 471 pound-feet of torque, which should give you a 0 to 60 time of 3.2 seconds, best case scenario. The rear motor is a permanent magnet motor, the front motor is an induction motor. Moving to the Highland, this makes 510 horsepower quoted by Tesla and 546 pound-feet of torque, rear permanent magnet motor, front induction motor. The new Performance makes roughly 60 more horsepower than the old Performance and about 80 pound-feet more of torque, which means it can change the 0 to 60 time from around 3.2 seconds to 2.9 seconds, although this is actually a little bit faster than that in the real world, whereas this is typically underperformed when it first came out, if that makes sense. You do gain a lot of top-end performance, so the 0 to 100 time on this is a lot slower than the 0 to 100 time on that, so the quarter-mile time is actually quite different. This is probably an 11.5 second quarter-mile time, and that's probably a whole second less, so that is a significant difference. Another thing with these cars is that the older Model 3s don't have a heat pump. They only have a PTC heater, which is basically the same thing as just a resistive space heater. Whereas the new cars have a heat pump, or otherwise known as a reverse cycle air conditioner, to increase efficiency in the winter. Now, to be fair, a lot of the things I am mentioning have been applied to the pre-Highland Model 3, just not mine. I think they did a mid-cycle refresh around the 2021 model year that brought a lot of these features, such as heat pump, different door panel trimming. I got rid of the ultrasonic sensors and radar, and some other small things like that. But overall, the new Model 3 Highland is a big upgrade. As you can see, there's quite a few differences between these two cars, including the build quality, interior styling, exterior styling, batteries, motors, etc. Now let's take these cars on a drive and see if that actually matters when you're driving the thing, starting with the 2019 Tesla Model 3, my personal daily driver. Okay, I'm in my 2019 Model 3. Let's take it for a little bit of a spin here. Obviously, I've been daily driving this for the past 2 months, ever since I picked it up used. And while it does have 210,000 miles on it, it still drives like a brand new car to some extent. Honestly, I did a range test with my stock wheels and tires with no lift, got 214 miles of range, and that is plenty for me. Obviously, I did lose about 40 to 50 miles with my tires and lift on it, which is not ideal, but then again, that's more than I need on a day-to-day basis. And the only time I ever need more than that is when I'm going on day trips. For example, when I went to go pick up that Model 3 to review, I needed to charge this car because it didn't have quite enough range. Anyway, acceleration, still pretty strong, even though it's not a performance. It's just a basic Model 3. It gets from point A to point B. Obviously, there is quite a bit more wind noise than the new car, but weirdly, there is actually less road noise, even with my all-terrain tires. Yeah. And while it's not as quick as that Model 3 Performance, it still gets up and goes. It is still pretty freaking quick. 0 to 60, I haven't timed it. I actually think I'm going to time it after this. Was, I think, 4.2 seconds, 4.3 before I put wheels and tires on it. So now it's probably like 4.5, 4.6, because the wheels add a lot of weight because they're cast wheels and heavy AT tires, so it's a lot of weight to get going. But overall, I really like this Model 3. I wouldn't really trade it in until the new ones get down to this price, or until the Model why Juniper gets down to below 30,000, and that's when I think the turning point is going to happen. Anyway, I'm going to look around here. I was going way too fast for that, but the brakes work. Anyway, we'll do a little 0 to 60 here since we're down to a stop. 3, 2, 1. Up and goes plenty fine. Okay, that was the experience of driving the 2019 Model 3. What do I think? Well, obviously it's not a performance, so it's not going to be as fast as that. But speaking of which, let's go take that one for a drive. Now I'm in the Model 3 Highland, 61%. So it says tap to activate reverse, which is not correct. I would actually want to go forward here, but usually the auto shift works pretty well. Anyway, I want to bring the steering wheel closer to me. You can see my dad riding his bicycle on the screen, even though it's not a bike, it's a dirt bike. But 2.9 seconds, 0 to 60. Tested it, gotten pretty dang close. Oh, well, I went for the turn signal stock that's not there. Okay, it's a lot faster. Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, we're not even at peak performance right now because it's only at 60% state of charge. But even still, it's still pretty good. I already did a very long test drive in, ooh, that's a steep. I already did a pretty long test drive in my full review of this car, which will be up on this channel. But that is a steep road. Yeah, but I just wanted to do a very thing. Auto shift. Anyway, let's do a 0 to 60 here. Go. 60. Set. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Oh my god, 60, 80. After taking both these cars for the drive, you can see why the Model 3 Highland deserves all the hype, because it handles better, it's quicker, it has more range, it looks better. It's just better in every possible way, but in a marginal increase to where the old Model 3 doesn't feel bad, it just feels a little bit outdated. But if you're looking to save some cash, just buy the old Model 3. They're so cheap right now. You can get these for less than 20 grand with only about 100,000 miles on it or less. These are about $50,000 new if you go for the performance, maybe 42 if you want to get a base model, so definitely costs a lot more. But in the end, which one would I pick? Well, that comes down to what did I actually pick, and that's this one, because of the price. The range is plenty enough for me. It's not super long because the car has quite a bit of degradation because it has 210,000 miles on it. Again, it depends from car to car, but I have plenty of range in this car, and it was only 15 grand. But pick whatever car you want. The Model 3 Highland is an objectively better car, but the Model 3 is still a very good car. They're still both fantastic in both regards. Anyway, that'll be the end of this video. See y'all in the next one. Bye.